optimism bias and pessimism bias at the same time. Isn't that true? And that's freaky. I mean, it's confusing to people, right? But my two favorite biases so far, I'm just getting into the list now. I'm going to have some fun with this in speeches and on my blog posts, all this kind of stuff. But my two favorite biases so far is something called the confirmation bias. Raise your hand if you've heard of the confirmation bias. It's a pretty popular one among the shrinks and stuff. Confirmation bias works like this, is that you are so convinced that you're right about something that you stop listening to other ideas. Very true in politics today. We're so divided as a nation, right? So some people are just so convinced about the way it should be that they can't even stomach listening to somebody complete a sentence from the other side. Terrible way to be. Confirmation bias. And my other favorite bias is blindside bias. Blindside bias is my favorite. It's kind of self-explanatory. But blindside bias is one of my favorites because here's the definition of blindside bias is you have a weakness, you have an Achilles heel, right, that you don't know you have. And even if I tell you you have it, you'll deny it. Why? Because you can't see it. Other people will tell you, this is your thing, this is what you need to do. And you're like, no, I'm good, thanks. You know, and you go out with your year. And about 4 months in, 5 months in, you'll say to yourself, oh my gosh, those people that were telling me that were right. How did they know that about me? They didn't even know me that well. But that's how it works. So don't let psychology get the best of you. I love being back in Tennessee because there's so much history down here, you know. I watched the Ken Burns, we were talking about this last night at dinner, the Ken Burns Civil War series a while back. And I was just taken by how brutal the war was and how much the war meant to the southern states in particular. You know, and I always think about that when I come down south and we were talking about the battle sites that are around here. And, you know, if you go back far enough in history to our first president, club presidents, George Washington, first president, wrestled with all this stuff, even before it was invented. Confirmation bias, blindside bias, change. Washington wrestled with change in a huge way. Remember what happened? Everybody gets on a boat, they come over from another country to escape the tyranny of Britain, right? And they get here and they're setting up shop, right? And what's the first impulse of all the people that are setting things up? We got to set this up like a monarchy. Why? Because that's where they just came from. To escape, right? And they're thinking, because they had a debate. Should we make him a king or a president? This is an ongoing debate for a long time. In fact, Washington was called the king president for a long time. He was like hyphenated. And bizarre stuff back in the day because you only work with the information that's available. That's why it's so important that you find out how people are succeeding in Rotary and model the successful ones. Do not model average. If you model average, you will be average. If you want a successful fundraiser, if you want a net $40,000, listen to me, net $40,000, you have to disregard all fundraisers that have raised $10,000. You have to say no to the car wash, people.